Joining our discussion now, Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York City. He is the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. He will become the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives in January. Congressman Nadler, I just want to get your reaction. I'm sure you saw that as it happened during the Republican convention. He was talking about the candidate you were supporting for president. Your feelings when you saw that night, an unprecedented moment, I think, in the history of our political conventions. Someone out there on a convention stage saying the other candidate should be locked up. And this candidate tonight getting the recommendation from a special prosecutor that he not be locked up.
Well, my reaction when I saw that was that, oh my God, you've got a candidate and a spokesman for a candidate who have lost all sight of American traditions and a democratic tradition, and who try to make enemies of their opponents and use the power of and threaten to use the power of law for political purposes, and that is very dangerous. And of course, we now know that this president lies incessantly about everything. And one thing I think we know now is that his period of being able to lie incessantly and not being called to account is coming to an end, both because of the Mueller investigation, because of what they're revealing, because the fact that at least one House of Congress is now going to do a proper job of holding them accountable. The
redactions tonight in the special prosecutor's filing are the things that we're all fascinated by. I'm sure that the House Judiciary Committee will be equally fascinated, and that your staff will be studying these documents tonight. And how will you approach, as you take the chairmanship next year, information like this that becomes public, that is of public interest and yet is being held back by the special prosecutor? You have a competing interest that I suppose you want to, in some sense, make a cooperating interest at the same time with the special prosecutor. How do you handle that going forward?
Well, I think our first duty is to protect the integrity of the special counsel's investigation, and we're not going to do anything knowingly that would interfere with that investigation. We would certainly, before doing certain things, consult with them to make sure we're not by accident stepping on the investigation in any way, because we are dependent on that investigation to give us a lot of the facts. I mean, we know the president lies all the time. We know he's surrounded by liars, but we need to know a lot more so that the American people know what's going on, and so that we can take steps to defend our democracy.
The president yesterday issued a tweet about Roger Stone not testifying. Roger Stone promising not to testify against the president. That was interpreted by several legal scholars and former prosecutors as being, in effect, witness tampering, public witness tampering. President Nixon's articles of impeachment, as I described here last night, included elements that President Trump has already done, that we already know he's done. When you become chairman of Judiciary, you will have the sole and unique power vested exclusively in you to decide whether the Judiciary Committee should discuss, debate, or vote on articles of impeachment. That will be a decision that is yours and yours alone. There's only one person in the Congress. The chairman of Judiciary has total power over the question of what the committee is going to do on any given day, including articles of impeachment. How will you approach this, given that the president is already crossing lines publicly that Richard Nixon crossed?
Well, we're going to have to look at all the evidence that the special counsel comes up with, the things that are being done in public, the things that we find out that are being done, and make decisions. There's certainly things that he has done, such as what you just mentioned, that give the appearance of witness tampering, that give the appearance of obstruction of justice. Whether they amount to that and whether you can prove those charges is a different question. But there's certainly evidence. And we'll have to look at all of that, and we'll have to look at, as I said, the findings of the special counsel, who knows a lot more than we do at this point. And down the line, we'll have to make some judgments.
Is the impeachment question something that's going to wait until the special counsel has completed his work?
It may very well. It depends how long the special counsel takes to complete that work. We don't know that. But it may. I mean, because without the special counsel's report, we may not have enough information to make such decisions. But again, initiating a formal impeachment inquiry is a very serious step. And I've articulated a three-part test for it. Number one, do you believe that you have real solid evidence that the president has committed impeachable offenses? Number two, are those offenses of sufficient gravity to justify putting the country through an impeachment process? And number three, because you don't want to tear the country apart, you don't want half the country for the next 30 years saying, we won the election, you stole it from us. Do you think that the evidence that you have is sufficiently clear and sufficiently convincing of deeds so clearly impeachable and necessary to impeach, that once you have laid it out, that you believe that once you have laid all that evidence out, an appreciable fraction of the opposition vote base will say they had to do this? Those are, I think, the three
Well,
tests.
that seems to make, your third condition seems to make impeachment a political judgment, and a political judgment
Impeachment is a political judgment.
and a political judgment that would be surrendered to Trump supporters. In other
No, it
words,
wouldn't be
if Trump supporters cannot support impeachment, then the Democrats in the House would not support impeachment.
No, I wouldn't say it. Remember, first, you got two different things. First of all, the simple arithmetic. You can't remove the president without a two-thirds vote in the Senate, which means if you're going to complete the process, you have to get some Republican votes. I think a simpler test is can you, people who voted for Trump, some of them, an appreciable, not a majority, but you have to think that your evidence is sufficient enough so that you'll get enough, some of them, I don't know what percent, but an appreciable percentage of them to agree that you had to do it, because you don't want to tear the country apart. And if you can't do that, you're not going to have a successful impeachment anyway, because you need the votes in the Senate.
We've had two impeachments during your lifetime, during my lifetime. Neither one of them tore the country apart. The Bill Clinton impeachment, which did not result in removal in the United States Senate, did not tear the country apart. The trial in the United States Senate was not even suspenseful. There wasn't even a sense that there was even a possibility of him being removed.
Right.
His popularity went up during the impeachment process. Doesn't the Congress exaggerate the drama involved in impeachment when, in fact, the country has rolled through two impeachment processes without any real stress at all?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. The Clinton impeachment was so clearly frivolous and so clearly nonsense and so clearly political that I don't think anybody really took it that seriously, and it was going to backfire on the Republicans. In fact, the midterm elections, which occurred before they carried on the impeachment in the lame duck session, showed that. So you didn't have that problem. The Nixon impeachment, you had the tapes. Remember, the Republicans didn't turn on Nixon until the very last moment when the tapes came out, and then there was no question at all. Maybe you'll have something so clear this time, maybe you won't.
Right. But should the House surrender its unique initiation of impeachment power to the Senate just for the fear that the Senate will not convict?
No. I don't think that's the case. But remember, impeachment is a political act. It's intended to be political. It's not a legal punishment. It's intended to be political, to defend the Constitution, to defend the democratic order against the president who would aggrandize power. And you have to make judgments as to whether an impeachment in given circumstances would accomplish that or not.
Let me just one final point on this, which is if the Democrats in the House made the judgment, we don't want to do this because we don't believe the Republicans in the Senate would get to a conviction and a removal. If that was the judgment,
but I don't think that's the test.
Okay, okay, good. Do you fear the possibility that if the House of Representatives does not act, that it will be historically condoning the behavior of this president and therefore historically setting the precedent that future presidents can publicly try to influence and tamper with witnesses?
No. I do think there's a problem that we have, though, that gets into this. I do not agree with the Office of Legal Counsel that the president cannot be indicted for crimes committed while in office. The Justice Department, however, is bound by that decision, by that opinion. The special counsel thinks considers himself bound for that, so that you can't indict a president as a practical matter right now. But once the president is no longer president, you can indict him, but the statute of limitations may have run. So we ought to, and I'm considering introducing legislation to this effect, toll the statute of limitations on any president while he is president, so that he can't be above the law. If he can't be impeached for improper conduct, if there are crimes, he should be made to be prosecuted. President Ford pardoned Nixon I thought at the time that was not the right thing to do. I still think it wasn't the right thing to do. It's debatable. But you should not have a system where a president, anybody, is above the law.
I just want to double underline the breaking news that you've just added to our breaking news tonight, and that is that you, as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee next year, are considering legislation that would, in effect, suspend the timing of statutes of limitations on any offenses applying to a sitting president, so the clock would stop ticking, in effect, on those statutes of limitations, so that they would extend after his term of office.
So the president is not the president, according to this opinion by OLC, is the only person in the country not subject to indictment for breaking the law. I don't think that's right, but if that is what we're going to do, then you should extend the statute of limitations so that he's not permanently, what's the word?
Above the law.
Above the law, yes.
I agree with you about that, about the precedent that the notion that the president cannot be prosecuted. I don't see where that exists in the Constitution. Congressman Jerry Nadler, thank you very much for joining us tonight on this important breaking news night. Really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.